My husband confessed during a family dinner that he chose me only because he had no other option, so I asked him if he ever truly loved me, but he just said I was reading too much into it. Hello, Reddit. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, still reeling from what happened last night. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. We met in our late 20s, and I truly believed we had something real, something built on love, mutual respect, and the kind of deep connection that withstands time. Sure, we weren't a whirlwind romance, but I thought we were a solid team. Until last night. We were at a family dinner, his parents, his sister, and her husband, a few cousins. It was supposed to be just another casual evening filled with good food and lighthearted conversation. I remember feeling relaxed, happy even, as we all laughed about old stories from childhood. Then, somehow, the topic shifted to how people meet their partners. His cousin joked about how she strategically picked her husband because he was the most responsible one in their friend group. Everyone chuckled. And that's when my husband said it. I mean, I didn't exactly have many options either, he said casually, stabbing his fork into a piece of chicken. I chose her because, well, what else was I supposed to do? At first, I thought I misheard him. The room went awkwardly silent, and I could feel the weight of everyone's gazes flickering between us. My stomach clenched. I laughed nervously, trying to give him an out. Wait, what do you mean? I asked, forcing my voice to stay light. He shrugged, as if what he had just said wasn't the most devastating thing I'd ever heard come out of his mouth. I mean, I didn't have another real choice at the time. You were there, we got along, and marriage just made sense. The silence grew heavier. His mother cleared her throat, and his sister gave me a look, one I couldn't quite read, but it made me feel small, exposed. I was suddenly hyper-aware of every breath I took, of the blood rushing in my ears. My chest felt tight, my hands clammy under the table. I tried to keep my voice steady. So, you're saying you never actually wanted to be with me? You just settled. He let out a short laugh, waving his hand dismissively, like I was making a big deal out of nothing. Come on, you're twisting my words. But I wasn't. There was nothing to twist. He had said it plainly. He had chosen me because he had no other options. Not because he loved me. Not because he couldn't imagine a life without me. But because I was there. Because I was convenient. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I was sitting at a dinner table with his entire family, and they were all just watching. Some of them looked awkward, others seemed sympathetic. But no one said a word. No one defended me. No one called him out. It was as if they all understood something I didn't, like this wasn't surprising to them at all. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a tight smile. Got it, I said, reaching for my glass of water just to have something to do with my hands. I don't remember much of the rest of the dinner. I was numb, operating on autopilot. I laughed when people laughed, nodded when necessary, but inside, I felt like something had shattered. The foundation of my marriage, of everything I believed about us, suddenly felt like a lie. When we got home, I wanted to confront him immediately, to demand an explanation, but the moment I saw him acting so normal, like nothing had happened, I froze. Did he even realize how much he had hurt me? Did he even care? I stayed silent, lying awake in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Was I really just his only option? Had I been blind all these years, mistaking comfort for love? Was he ever actually happy with me, or had he just been going through the motions this entire time? The worst part? He hasn't brought it up since. Not an apology. Not a clarification. Just silence. And now I don't know how to move forward. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his words again. I didn't have another real choice at the time. The sentence echoed in my mind, over and over, twisting like a knife in my chest. By the time morning arrived, I felt drained, but I knew I couldn't just let this sit. I needed to understand. I needed to know if my entire marriage had been built on something hollow. I didn't confront him right away. Something in me, pride, fear, self-preservation, made me hesitate. Instead, I turned to someone who had been at dinner that night, his sister, Claire. I texted her first, just something light. Hey, you busy? Can we talk? She replied within minutes. Sure. What's up? We met for coffee that afternoon. Claire had always been polite to me, even friendly, but I wouldn't say we were close. Still, she was his sister. She knew him better than almost anyone. If there was something I had missed, maybe she could help me see it. As soon as we sat down, she sighed, stirring her iced coffee like she didn't want to say what she was about to. I figured you'd want to talk, she said. Last night was, yeah. I leaned forward, my fingers gripping my cup. Did you know? My voice was quieter than I intended. Did you know that I hesitated, then forced myself to say it. That he settled for me? Claire sighed again, but this time it was different. Heavier. It's not like that. I stared at her. Then what is it like? She didn't answer right away. She bit her lip, choosing her words carefully. Look, I love my brother, but he's practical. He's not the kind of guy who gets swept up in grand love stories. He thinks about things logically. When he was younger, he was always talking about how marriage should be a partnership, not just passion. And when he met you, you made sense to him. I felt something inside me crack. So it is true. He didn't fall in love with me. He just picked me because I was there. Claire winced but didn't deny it. I think he cares about you. I do. But love? The way you probably mean it? I don't know if that was ever part of it for him. I felt sick. The words stung, even though they confirmed what I already suspected. But something about Claire's expression made me hesitate. There was something else. What are you telling me? I asked. She looked down at her coffee. There was someone else before you. A long time ago. He was different with her. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. My hands trembled. Who? Claire shook her head. It doesn't matter. It didn't work out, and after that, he changed. He started talking more about logic, about not waiting for something that might never happen. And then he met you. And you fit the version of life he thought he should have. I wanted to throw up. I left the cafe feeling worse than before. If there had been someone else, someone he had loved, truly, deeply, then I knew the answer before I even asked the question. He had settled for me because he had already lost what he really wanted. Looking back, I should have seen it. The way he had proposed sweet, yes, but not exactly passionate. The way he never seemed enthusiastic about our milestones, just content. The way he had never once said something like, I can't imagine my life without you, or you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Had I been blind? Or just willfully ignorant? I started replaying every conversation, every moment, searching for proof that I had been loved. But all I found were little cracks that had been there all along, cracks I had ignored because I had wanted so desperately to believe in us. That night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. We were in bed, the room quiet except for the hum of the fan. He was scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm inside me. I turned to him. Did you ever love me? He glanced at me, confused. What? My voice didn't shake. I made sure of it. I'm asking if you ever loved me. Or if I was just the logical choice. He sighed, setting his phone down. Are we really doing this? I waited. He ran a hand through his hair, looking tired. I don't know what you want me to say. I married you, didn't I? We have a good life. We're happy. I felt cold. That's not an answer. He frowned. You're overthinking this. I meant what I said at dinner. You're twisting my words. Of course I care about you. Of course I want to be with you. That's not what I asked. My voice was a whisper now. I asked if you ever loved me. Not if you cared about me. Not if we have a good life. He hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. Finally, he sighed again. Love isn't just some dramatic, movie-worthy feeling. It's about commitment. It's about choosing someone and building a life together. That's what we have. That's what matters. I stared at him, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. You still didn't answer me, I said. He looked at me for a long time. Then, finally, he said, You're reading too much into this. And with that, he rolled over and turned off the lamp. I lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, feeling more alone than I ever had in my entire life. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his words, or rather, the weight of the ones he never said. He never answered me. He never said he loved me. He never even tried to convince me that I was wrong. And somehow, that was worse than if he had just admitted the truth outright. By morning, I felt hollow. I moved through my routine like a ghost, brushing my teeth, making coffee, watching him as he went about his morning as if nothing had changed. As if he hadn't just confirmed, in the most careful, avoidant way possible, that I had never truly been loved. He kissed my forehead before he left for work. I flinched without meaning to. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and just didn't care enough to ask. I spent the day in a fog. I didn't cry, I was past crying. Instead, I thought about our relationship, about how I had always been the one making the effort, the one holding us together, about how I had mistaken his presence for love, how I had convinced myself that commitment was the same as adoration. And then I thought about myself. If someone had told me years ago that I would one day marry a man who saw me as nothing more than a practical decision, would I have still walked down that aisle? If someone had warned me that I would end up in a marriage where love was a word that didn't need to be spoken because it was never really there, would I have still said yes? I already knew the answer. That night, I was waiting for him when he got home. He walked in, set down his bag, and gave me a small, tired smile. Hey, everything okay? I looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about us. I was thinking about me. No, I said. It's not. He frowned, confused. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I mean, I can't do this anymore. His face changed, the confusion deepening. Do what anymore? I didn't even hesitate. Pretend that this marriage is something it's not. His jaw tensed. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, I said, my voice calm, steady. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You just don't want to say it. He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. Is this about the dinner thing again? I already told you, you're overthinking it. I shook my head. No, I'm finally seeing it. He scoffed, crossing his arms. So what? You're just deciding to throw everything away over one comment. One comment. I let out a bitter laugh. That wasn't just one comment. That was the truth slipping out when you weren't thinking about how it would sound. That was the truth I've been ignoring for years. His eyes darkened. So what are you saying? I met his gaze head-on. I'm saying I want a divorce. For the first time since this all started, I saw a flicker of something real in his expression. Not sadness. Not regret. Just shock. As if it had never even occurred to him that I would be the one to leave. His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to argue, but no words came out. Finally, he shook his head. You don't mean that. I do. His brows furrowed. We have a good life. A stable life. You really want to throw that away? I took a slow breath. You don't love me. And I deserve to be loved. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off before he could speak. And before you try to deny it, don't. You had your chance to say it. I begged you to tell me. And you didn't. You couldn't. His face hardened. So that's it? You're just done. I nodded. I think I've been done for longer than I realized. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I could see it in his eyes, the way his mind was racing, trying to figure out how to fix this without actually addressing the real problem. But I wasn't going to let him. I'll start looking for a place tomorrow, I said, my voice quiet but firm. He let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his hair. I don't get this. I thought we were happy. I gave him a small, sad smile. You thought I would never leave. And then, for the first time in our entire marriage, he had nothing left to say. Leaving wasn't easy. It never is. There were logistics to figure out, emotions to untangle, a life to unbuild. He didn't fight me on it, not really. He was tense, cold, but not angry. Just resigned. The way someone would be if they lost something convenient, not something precious. That realization alone made it easier to walk away. It's been a few months now. I have my own place, my own space. Some days, I wake up expecting to feel regret, expecting to wonder if I made a mistake. But I never do. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I'm alive again. And I know, without a doubt, that one day, I'll find someone who doesn't just choose me out of convenience. Someone who loves me because they can't imagine their life without me. And when that day comes, I'll finally know what real love is.